We tend to think that getting good with money is all about what you know, right? It's about spreadsheets, complex formulas, analyzing the market. But what if that's completely backward? What if financial success has way less to do with how smart you are and everything to do with how you behave? Well, that's the powerful idea we're diving into today, straight from Morgan Housel's fantastic book, The Psychology of Money. So, to kick things off, I want to tell you a story about two guys. And on the surface, they couldn't possibly be more different. One was a humble janitor, and the other, a super successful, high flying finance executive. But their financial stories took completely opposite and totally shocking turns. Okay, so on one side, you've got Ronald Reed. He spent his life fixing cars at a gas station and sweeping floors as a janitor. And on the other side, Richard Fuscone, a Merrill Lynch executive with an MBA from Harvard. Now, if you had to bet which one of these guys died a multimillionaire, who would you put your money on? I mean, it seems like a total no-brainer, right? Well, get this. That number, $8 million, that's the net worth Ronald Reed, the janitor, had when he died. So how did he do it? No lottery, no secret inheritance, nope. He just patiently saved what little he could from his modest paycheck and invested it in solid blue chip stocks. And then he just waited for decades. And Richard Fuscone, the man with the fancy Harvard degree and the big corner office, he declared bankruptcy. Even with his incredible education and massive income, he got completely wiped out by greed and taking on way too much debt. He lost everything in the 2008 financial crisis. The difference in their education was huge, for sure. But the difference in their behavior? That's what really mattered. So what does this absolutely wild story tell us? Well, it gets right to the heart of the book's main idea, which is what we're going to unpack next. And that is, financial success isn't a hard science. It's a soft skill. It's all about psychology and your behavior. And here is the single most important point. How you act with your money is so much more important than what you know about money. You could be a financial genius who crunches numbers for a living, but if you can't control your emotions, you can end up a total disaster. And on the flip side, an ordinary person with zero formal training can become incredibly wealthy just by mastering a few simple behaviors, like patience and discipline. Okay, so if behavior is the real key, then why do we see people making what look like, well, totally crazy decisions with their money all the time? The book argues that, actually, no one is crazy. We are all just making decisions based on our own completely unique map of how the financial world works. Just think about it for a second. Does everyone really see the stock market the same way? Do you think a 25-year-old software engineer views risk in the same way a retiree who actually lived through the Great Depression does? Of course not. Their personal experiences have shaped every single financial belief they have. And this slide just shows it so perfectly. If you were born in 1970, you literally watched stocks go up 10 times over during your teens and 20s. The lesson you learned? Stocks are a machine for generating wealth. But if you were born in 1950, the market went absolutely nowhere during those same formative years of your life. Your lesson was probably more like, the stock market is a total gamble. And it's not just the stock market. Let's take inflation. If you grew up in the 1960s, you saw prices triple. You remember the gas lines and how your paycheck just didn't stretch as far. But if you were born in 1990, inflation has been so low your whole life, it's probably never even crossed your mind. Your personal history becomes your financial truth. This quote from the book just nails it. Our own tiny little slice of experience makes up the vast majority of how we see the financial world. So what might look like a completely crazy decision to you could make perfect sense to someone else, all based on the lessons their own life has taught them. Now, beyond our personal experiences, there are two other giant forces at play that we almost always overlook: luck and risk. And they're really just two sides of the same coin, shaping our lives in ways we just can't control. Let's talk about Bill Gates. The guy was brilliant and worked incredibly hard. Nobody's denying that. But what were the odds that he would end up at Lakeside School, one of the only high schools in the entire world that had a computer back in 1968? That was just an unbelievable stroke of luck that gave him a huge head start. But remember, luck has a sibling, risk. Back at Lakeside, Gates had a best friend named Ken Evans. And by all accounts, Kent was just as smart, just as ambitious. The two of them were always talking about starting a company together. Kent Evans could have very, very easily been a co-founder of Microsoft. But he never got the chance. The odds of being killed in a mountaineering accident before graduating high school were, believe it or not, also about 1 in a million. The same force, the same magnitude, just working in the exact opposite direction. That's risk. So, the real takeaway here is this. We can't give 100% of the credit for success to skill and hard work without also admitting that risk can just completely derail even the best laid plans. So, when we're judging our own financial situations and those of others, we have to remember nothing is ever quite as good or as bad as it seems on the surface. And that leads us to what might be the single hardest, but also the most important financial skill there is: knowing when to stop moving the goalposts. It's about avoiding that dangerous game of constantly wanting more. The key is learning when you have enough. I mean, just look at the cautionary tale of Raja Gupta. This is a guy who came from absolutely nothing, an orphan, to become the CEO of McKinsey. He had a net worth of $100 million. He had everything you could possibly want. But he wanted more. He just had to be a billionaire. And that endless desire pushed him to commit insider trading, and he threw away his freedom and his entire reputation for money he didn't even need. This brings me to a famous story. The author Joseph Heller, who wrote the classic novel Catch-22, was at a party hosted by a billionaire, and at one point, someone pointed out that the host, a hedge fund manager, had probably made more money in that single day than Heller's masterpiece had earned in its entire history. And Heller's reply was just perfect. He said, "Yes, but I have something he will never have: enough." That one word, enough, it just contains an entire universe of wisdom about wealth, greed, and what it really means to be happy. It's the ultimate weapon against that destructive cycle of always wanting more. And it leaves all of us with a really simple but profound question. What's your definition of enough?